Kia ora, everyone. Great to see lots of people arriving. We'll just wait another couple of minutes to see if more of the class join us. Kia ora koutou. Welcome, everybody. I see we've got about 50 odd participants. We've got 78 students enrolled in the course this semester. Now, hopefully you can hear me all right. I think my microphone looks like it's working. So just to get us started, I just had a few kind of comments, kind of welcome and then get used to Zoom kind of comments. And then I have got a lecture on teamwork and projects that I'll launch into. So I guess firstly, welcome you into the place of Zoom. I know that for some people, they really like working in a Zoom environment. It's, you know, it saves them on travel and commuting and a whole lot of things. But just putting my cards on the table, I do not like teaching and creating learning environments within Zoom. I find it much preferable to be in the classroom with you. So just letting you know, it's certainly not my preference to be in this place, but we will make the best of it that we can. So I think there are a few little things about Zoom that have changed since last year that might have changed for some of you. So just signaling that at the bottom of my screen, and my screen I think sometimes looks a little different than yours, I have something called reactions. So can you give me a thumbs up if you see reactions? Oh, great. Okay, so I see lots of thumbs up. So one of the things that's really useful for me, especially in these big classrooms where we've got more than 70 people on the screen, is if you do want to kind of make a comment, then it's really useful to use the raise hand item that's in that reactions, because when you use the raise hand item, then it will actually put your image to the top of the screen and I'll see it. Now, and I do like to use the chat function as well, and I have seen a message in there another student is trying to enter but is unable to. It states that the meeting is for authorised participants only. Now this is because I have set up the Zoom meeting where you need to log in with your university ID first. So, so Gracie, if you're able to communicate back to that student, if they can log on by going to zoom.auckland.ac.nz and then use their username, the Auckland University username and password, then they should be able to get in. So usually people can't get in as if they're coming around the side door, not as a University of Auckland student. Now I have done that on purpose because when we move into the workshop, I have pre-allocated the breakout rooms to your bird groups that you've been put in to work for the semester. And so if you don't log in using the university, your student university UPI, then that means you don't automatically go into the breakout rooms. Thank you very much, Gracie, I appreciate that. So I'll keep an eye on those chats in case there are questions that come up. I'll keep an eye out for any of the raised hands, but if I miss them because I'm a bit caught up with what I'm talking about, then any of you assertive students who are out there, please just jump in and let me know, hey Andrew, just letting you know there's a question or comment from so-and-so. So I'll try and keep an eye out, but please feel free to jump in and let me know if you see something that I haven't responded to. I think that's most of our background things that I was going to say. Breakout room, hands up, ask questions in chat. Oh, and I will always record these Zoom online lectures. Hopefully we won't have to do too many of these, but I won't record the workshop sessions. And this is mainly because most of the time in the workshops we'll be moving in and out of the breakout groups. So just there ends up being video recordings with huge gaps in them, and they're really uncomfortable to manage. So before I jump into the lecture content, are there any questions about the course so far, from looking at the introduction to the course and the overview of assessments? Does anyone want to jump in with anything so far? Okay, and I see a huge number of you have set up your e-portfolios. Haven't talked very much about those yet, but we'll talk about those as we proceed. But there is one little mistake that can happen, one little thing that can happen, and there's a few of you who have fallen into this trap, a little trap you can fall into, and that is when I ask you to send me the link to the portfolio, it's not actually the URL that's at the top of the screen. It's actually a link that's in the e-portfolio itself. So most of you have sent me the right thing, but there's a couple of you who, maybe half a dozen, that haven't. So maybe just double check your email and make sure that it's a long kind of e-portfolio URL. If it's a really short one, then it's probably not the right one. And the thing you have to send me is when you first open your e-portfolio, on the welcome page, about halfway down the welcome page, there is a heading called "Your e-portfolio is private," and there's a couple of explanatory sentences there. And the URL you need to send me, the hyperlink you need to send me, is there in the bottom of that paragraph. So most of you have done that, but a few of you have sent me the one from the top of the screen. Okay, that's the main things. So I think we can jump into our PowerPoint now. So I've put this on the lecture workshop outline as well. So I think most of you will have seen that because you've been paying attention to what's on there. So I just wanted to build on the introduction to the course that I started on the recorded lecture, where I was talking a little bit about the importance of competencies in the health sector. And in this real-time Zoom session, I want to build on that and talk a little bit more about the importance of teamwork and the importance of project work in the health sector. And then we'll see if you've got any comments that come up along the way. I've got one breakout room exercise in this. mainly just to give you an opportunity to disappear into breakout rooms, get the feel for that if you haven't done it since last year, and then to come back to the main room again. It's a little practice run. So teams have become incredibly important in the health sector. But the health sector has not actually been at the front of the pack in terms of different workforce sectors, in terms of recognizing and building the importance of teamwork into their operations. There have been a whole lot of other sectors that were way ahead of healthcare that were implementing team-based activity before we did in health. And one of the classic areas is in aviation, where there were people on the ground at the airport and in the air, and the recognition that there needed to be this really effective way to collaborate across platforms, across distance, and across really different workspaces. So the health sector really is a little late to the party compared to other sectors. And if you go and do any background reading on teamwork, you might actually see that some of the original research is drawing on other sectors like aviation and professional sports. But we are catching up dramatically in healthcare. And indeed, this has been part of my motivation for my doctoral study. So I have been looking at the place of collaborative practice in primary healthcare. And it has been really slightly alarming for me when I discover how far we really still have to go in primary healthcare. In hospital-based settings and in DHBs, generally, they've done a lot better at embracing the importance of collaborative teamwork. In primary healthcare, they're still working on this. So I really wanted to signal that to you because there is a growing body of research evidence that is showing that teamwork ends up contributing to better healthcare. And some of that evidence is about there are better health outcomes for service users who, when they are going to services that have got comprehensive teamwork as a part of those services. And service users tend to be more satisfied with the healthcare service they get when they have gone to a healthcare service that is using teamwork. And it actually ends up benefiting the employees in the healthcare sector because employees get greater job satisfaction that they are contributing to this wider body of work rather than feeling like everything for the patient is falling into their own particular domain. So there's some growing bodies of evidence about that. There's certainly some really clear evidence that services can be more cost effective when there is a wider teamwork of people involved with service provision. And people who are working as a part of collaborative teams end up having a better understanding of other roles, other professions, other roles within the service, across services. And what that means is that the employees themselves can move across different services in their career journeys, but it also means that the health professional can facilitate the movement of service users between services because they better understand other services. And this is particularly important in population health, where there is actually quite a wide variety of organisations and professionals involved in a lot of population health initiatives. So teams are certainly increasingly recognised as really important. And so this has meant that your employers have said really clearly to us when we have consulted about, is our Bachelor of Health Science working for you? They have said to us really clearly, yes, but we want your students to understand the importance of projects and the importance of teams, and we want them to come out of the degree having had more experience of working with other people. And so that's a primary motivation for this course. So 5 years ago, this course did not exist in the Bachelor of Health Science. The Bachelor of Health Science was reviewed. This is what employers said. And that was the birth of this course and why we're doing this. And already we're getting really positive feedback from your future employers about the benefit of this course for the graduates. A second reason why teamworking and collaboration are increasingly important is that competency frameworks, which I talked about earlier, they almost always name the significance of teamwork. And so I showed you a particular example in the recorded lecture of the Canadian Interprofessional Health Collaborative. And we're going to go back to some of the words in that again in a moment, so that I really get you to pay attention to some of those key ideas. And certainly another motivation for teamwork being expected is we have increasingly complex health contexts, increasingly complex health problems that people are experiencing, that they need the health system to respond to. And there's an increasing recognition that no one profession, no one person has all the skills and knowledge to deal with this complexity. And one of the sticky points in the health sector that I've noticed, particularly in primary healthcare, is that general practitioners, doctors, have been the slowest to recognise this. So much of our health system is, especially primary healthcare, is tied up with go to the doctor. And actually there are so many complex long-term conditions that going to the doctor is not the best solution. So the more our health system recognises that the complexity of long-term conditions, particularly related to ageing demographics, means that we have to build in increasingly complex healthcare teams, then the more effective our health system is going to be across time. And you as graduates who are going out there into the health sector are going to be key with keeping on driving this message through with your expectations and your experience. There is more and more pressure on the health dollar, and you will have been learning about this from some of your other courses. And so we have to make sure that we are getting the best bang for the buck from every health dollar that is spent. And we know that teamwork contributes to more effective health services, so we know we have to do more teamwork. So that's part of the motivation for making sure you're prepared to work in this kind of sector. So I said I was just going to return to this Canadian Interprofessional Health Collaboration framework for a moment, just reminding you, I think most of you will have seen that recorded lecture, that team functioning is down in this bottom quadrant, and part of what is languaged around the domain of team functioning is that learners and practitioners will understand the dynamics and processes around interprofessional collaboration. So I just wanted to draw your attention to a couple of the phrases in these learning outcomes that I've put here at the bottom. So participate and be respectful of all members' participation. This is a really key component of teamwork. And I want you to really pay attention to this when you're establishing your group work processes, when we move into the workshops later today and tomorrow for some of you. I want you to think about how can you be setting up your group work activities where you are encouraging participation and ensuring that there is respectful relationships within your group processes. And the second aspect that's here in this Canadian Interprofessional Competency Framework is this idea that really good teams reflect on their teamwork. Now, I will actually give you a number of opportunities during the course to come back and pause and go, okay, how are we doing within our group work processes at the moment? What's working, what's not working, what can we build? So there's a few different opportunities that I'll take to do that. But certainly one of those places that you can take your own responsibility for this is to start to document some of your experiences in that e-portfolio that I've encouraged you to set up. So the e-portfolio itself is yours. That's your document where you can start to write some of these key things underneath those key sections. And along the way, I will encourage you to write things and I'll give you some ideas on what to write. And then when it comes close to submitting your 200-word reflection under Canvas Turnitin, you've got something that you can draw on to pull out and write your 200-word reflection. So I'm going to be encouraging you to write things in your e-portfolio. The e-portfolio by itself is not the assessed document. it's a space for you to write things under those headings. So I'll find some ways to keep encouraging you to do that. And the reason I'm doing that is because one of the things about good teams is that they are able to reflect on their functioning. And so I want to train you through this course to reflect on the functioning of your team and your contributions to your team. And in a few weeks' time, after you've settled into your coursework and your assignments, I've scheduled for someone to come in to talk to you about communication styles. And after you've got started, you'll find that really useful kind of tool to go, okay, so here's what I've noticed about my own communication style. Here's what I've noticed about others. Here's some of the things that I can maybe think about tweaking about how we're communicating with each other. So that's one of the things that I'll give you to help you reflect. So just drawing your attention to the significance of those things with teamwork. So what I've got here is, I think it's really useful to think about some definitions of things every now and again. And this is a definition of teamwork. It's actually quite an old one that comes from 1988. But when I looked at more modern ones, I thought they're a lot longer than this, a lot more convoluted. This has got some really nice snapshot kind of measures in it that I think are really useful to get your head around. So I don't expect you in your assignments to be drawing on material from 1988. It's not something that I would encourage, but this is a particularly good definition of teamwork from the World Health Organization in 1988. And I just think it's a little quirky because when I was in your shoes as a bachelor's degree student, was actually in this year, 1988. So it's just a little quirky connection to a year. It's a really good definition of teamwork though, and it's got a range of different points in it. So what I'd really like you to do is I want you to read this definition, have a think about it, and I'm going to send you into the breakout rooms for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I've got a couple of tasks that are on the next slide that I want you to think about this definition of teamwork. So there are a whole lot of different aspects in that definition. Which one particularly resonates for you? Which one seems really important? And talk to the person that I pair you up with randomly, or Zoom will pair you up with randomly, about why you chose this one. And also have a brief conversation about, is there a way that you might bring this aspect into your group work in this course? So those are the 3 things that I'd like you to discuss in your pairs. And you probably want to just start off by going, hi, I'm so-and-so, and you might want to let your person that you're working with know where you're up to in the Bachelor of Health Science. Is this your last semester? You've got a couple more semesters to go, so just maybe have a little comment about that. Okay, so I am going to send you into breakout rooms now. Breakout rooms. And just deciding how many. Okay, so there's about 2 or 3 people in each room. So if you finished your conversation, then feel free to just come back to the main room after you finish. And if you're still in there, I'll pull you back in about 5 minutes. Okay. You might have to click on join the room as well. Now, Caitlin, are you in a room? That was a good reminder for me about how to open the rooms and close the rooms, and I've just moved into a room because someone called me in and come out of a room. So hopefully that was a good reminder for you about how to operate within those rooms. We'll be doing more of that within the workshops this afternoon and tomorrow. So has anyone got any comments they want to make about things that came up? Anything that seemed significant in your group? Oh, can you post the definition? I didn't do that, sorry. I didn't put the definition up that people asked me to. I might have slowed people down. Anyone want to make any comments about any aspect of that? Quite, no one's hands up. That's fine. Oh yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
I think mine was like toward respect and how in a group, in a team, there are professionals that comes from different areas, and so they have that different perception of tackling a problem, and so there might be disagreements towards an idea, so it doesn't lead into like you can disagree, but it's important to keep that respect and go over why there is disagreement in order to reach um, an understandable solution.
I think that's such a good point. And it's one of the things that has consistently come up in group work and teamwork across decades, that this is fundamental to being able to work effectively in groups. We all have our own personal and professional experience. And when people train in a particular discipline, they get shaped to see the world in a particular way, and other people do not see the world in the same way. So finding a way to recognize this is my way of seeing things, it's not the only way of seeing things, and how can we continue to work collaboratively with each other, recognizing that we see things differently. It's a really good point, so thank you for raising that, Ibrahim. Anything else that anyone else wants to say? If you use your raise the hand in the reactions, then I'm more likely to see you in the big list, because there's 63 people in the list, so I might not see you. Okay. Let's leave it there then, and we'll move on to the next slide. So I've talked a little bit about the importance of competencies in the recorded lecture today so far, the importance of teamwork in the health sector. And this third topic here is the importance of projects. So this is the third foundation of this course. So projects and project management have always had some place in the health sector, but they established themselves much more quickly in other sectors before they established themselves in health. So projects have become increasingly important in health, and it's partly because of the time-focused nature of projects and the pressure on the health dollar. So, so increasingly, projects are utilised to achieve some kind of short-term gain that can be evaluated, documented, measured, and then it can justify investment of resources, particularly money and personnel, into a longer-term implementation of some kind of initiative. So commonly, this is framed around testing some proposed intervention around a pilot or a 1 or 2 year program of some sort. So in that light, this is kind of my compiling together a whole lot of different definitions of projects. That a project is a temporary endeavor, so it's time focused, to deliver something, which could be a product or a service or a result, at the right time, to the right level, at the expected cost. So in the health sector, this temporary endeavor could be anywhere from 6 months, a year, 2 years, or 3 years, depending on the size of the investment that the funder puts into the project. So for your assignments in this course, you'll be working on a project that will have a year's duration. So by their very nature, projects are focused on change. So in the classroom, I'll often do this little dance across the front of the classroom here. So I'll have to try and do it on the screen. So what happens when a project is developed is that a snapshot in time is taken where this is the way things are, and there's a recognition that things need to be different. A project is developed, see I'm moving down a timeline, and then a project is implemented, and then the project comes to an end. So it's a temporary endeavor by its nature that is focused on change. There's a huge different variety of how projects look in the health sector. They look really different. The scope of them, how many people are involved in them, the geographical area can be really different from really local to really broad. So they're incredibly varied. So a key part of implementing projects is project management. So project management by definition is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to a particular project across time. And usually there are 5 identified phases of this application: knowledge, skills, tools, techniques. There's an initiation phase, a planning phase, an executing phase, and a monitoring and controlling set of phases, which can be across different parts of the project, length of the project duration. And finally, all projects have to have some kind of closure phase, because by nature, they are a finite temporary endeavor. So we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of these aspects of project management as we go through the course over the next few weeks. But the key part of where you're locating yourself in this course is this initiating and planning phase of project management. And this is not a bad place for me to signal here that when you go out there into the workplace, you will be working with project managers who have had extensive training in project management and extensive experience, and you will have a little taste of what that is from this course. So on the one hand, be confident that you've got some really important concepts and knowledge under your belt, but on the other hand, have a little humility that there will be people who have a much deeper understanding of project management. They may have done it across a whole degree. So in health, the expectations of projects are high. Now, if you've been thinking a little bit about what's been happening with some of the projects that are a part of responses to COVID, then you would have a little bit of a sense about some of the expectations being high. So primarily expectations are high because of financial investment and the importance of some kind of quality infrastructure in health that doesn't necessarily exist in other sectors. But also key parts of this are the political agenda and the money that is attached to the political agenda. So this means expectations can be really high. If a project is up for scrutiny from the public, then investigative journalists by themselves will throw a lot of challenges at that project implementation. So, so there are some really high expectations around quality and financial diligence that are attached to projects in the health sector. The second thing that's important in health is human health and safety. So there is much potential for harm in healthcare. And so this puts a lot of extra expectations on projects. The third area that's important to consider is that healthcare projects are expected to draw on research and theory in their implementation. And you will certainly see that I have this expectation of your project proposal in this course. You need to do some background research to make sure that your proposal is based on some really clear assumptions. Thirdly, in healthcare, there are some significant issues around software infrastructure. And so this can mean there's some significant requirement for training to be able to implement that software. So that has a particular impact on health because we have quite a lot of legacy software in the health system that was born at this time in history, and it's continued in this bit of part of the sector for some time, and it doesn't intersect with software from other parts of the health system. So there can be some significant expectations around development of software and training in software. And finally, the human resource is probably one of the most expensive resources for implementing projects. And so the human resources must be used to best effect. And this can mean that there needs to be some significant investment in continuing professional development to enable people who are working in projects to continue to do what they need to do through the life of the project. So that's some of the things that are sitting behind projects in healthcare. So I've just put this quote here from a famous author, just signaling to you students that project management is now well established. And there's a couple of bits in this quote that I wanted to draw your attention to. So project managers need to be determined, flexible, and prepared to respond to emerging evidence and stakeholder demands. Now, this is one sentence, but there are some really important ideas in here. And so in next week's lecture, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these ideas of stakeholder demands and flexibility and the ability to respond to emerging evidence. Probably the final comment I want to make is that these three aspects that I've talked about to you so far, the importance of competencies and competency frameworks, the importance of teamwork, and the importance of project planning are built into the infrastructure of the course. And you'll see that the first learning outcome of this course in the syllabus is that you will be able to plan, research, and write a project proposal by the end of this course that is persuasively presenting an evidence-informed argument for a population health intervention. So this is the key infrastructure that I have built into assignments 2 and 3 to enable you to carry out this kind of work. Okay, I haven't been keeping an eye on the chat. Definition that I didn't put up, but I did eventually. Okay, nothing else has come up. Any other comments or questions that people have got before we wrap up? Okay, so the final slide that I have here is this slide about class reps. So normally when we're in the physical classroom, I would ask for a show of hands of how many people have been class reps before. So so maybe you can probably still give me this little bit of a view by using the reactions raise hand function. So I can just get a little bit of a feel for how many of you already been class reps before? Okay, so in the reactions, yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is 4 so far? Okay, so not very many of you so far, 4 of you. Okay, so that tells me something really significant, that there is a wide pool of potential applicants for class reps in this class, because there's not very many of you have put your hand up to do it before. So what I would be curious, any of you people who have been class reps, would you be prepared to make a couple of comments about how valuable it was for you? Did you learn things about being a class rep? Would you encourage people to be a class rep? Why? Would any of you people who have been class reps like to make a comment? You just have to remember to unmute your mic. None of you want to make a comment?
I can make a comment.
Okay.
I found, because I was class rep last year during the first lockdown. So for me, it was an interesting experience trying to connect with students and staff through a digital level. So I think for anyone that's kind of hesitant about it but wanting to give it a try, I reckon you should go for it, because in par with this course is that you're building on communication and leadership. And so I feel like this is a good stepping stone to evaluating the ways in which you can communicate between those who are higher up than you and those that are on the same level as you.
That's great. I really appreciate that you've given us that reflection. And you're quite right that a key component of this course is giving people an opportunity to understand the place of leadership in the health sector. And this is a really good opportunity to go, maybe this is something I could develop, and here's a structured space where I could develop some of these ideas. I think there's some reasonable training that they give you along the way. Is that right, Shivani? Okay, fantastic. She's nodding. So we don't have to do this now, but if you are thinking that you might want to be a class rep, I really encourage you to just send me an email and go, I'm thinking about it, or I'd definitely like to do it. And then if there's more than one person that puts their hand up, then next week we can do a little, give you a chance to say to people who you are and give the class a chance to vote. There might only be one or two of you put your hands up, and because we're a reasonably large class, it'll be fine for us to have 2 class reps for this class. So if you're interested, send me an email, and we don't have to lock you in from the email, but we can take it from there. Okay, the e-portfolio, someone's asked a question about the e-portfolio. So maybe send me an email about that, the person who's asked that question about the e-portfolio, and I can clarify that for you. Okay, everyone, any other final, is there another Zoom at 3:30 today? There is, for the people who are scheduled for the workshop stream that is in the time, if it's in your timetable for today, then definitely. So I can tell you that those bird groups, if you haven't found out which bird group you're in, look on Canvas under people, and you should be able to see the name of your bird group. And so the people that I would expect to see today are Kāmana, Korimako, Mātata, Miro Miro, Pukeko, Ruru, Takahe, Torea, Tuke, and Fio. So I expect to see you at 3:30. Okay, everyone. Bye. Rest of you, I'll see you tomorrow.